If deep work is the hero of Newport's book, shallow work is not exactly the villain. It is more like clutter. One item is harmless. 10 items are annoying. 1,000 items, and suddenly your life is an episode of professional hoarding. The final rule of deep work is to drain the shallows. Not eliminate them completely, because some shallow work is necessary, but reduce them until they stop swallowing the day. Welcome. In this final part, we cover Newport's fourth rule and the conclusion of the book. This is where the argument becomes operational. Schedule every minute, set limits, treat shallow obligations with suspicion, write better emails, protect fixed work hours, and build a life where the deepest work is not always postponed until someday. Newport opens this rule with examples of companies and workers who experimented with reducing work hours or forcing stricter limits. The interesting lesson is that constraints can improve focus. When people have less time, they often become more careful about what deserves attention. A shorter container exposes waste. Suddenly, the meeting that used to seem normal begins to look like a small indoor hostage situation. The idea is not simply to work less. Newport is not promising that everyone could do the same job in 4 hours while sipping tea and radiating balance. The point is that shallow work expands when limits are weak. If you give email all day, it will take all day. If you allow meetings to occupy every empty space, they will. If you treat availability as the highest virtue, your own priorities become guests in your schedule. Newport recommends scheduling every minute of the day. This sounds extreme at first, and many people resist it because they imagine a robotic life with no flexibility. But Newport's version is more practical. The schedule is not a prison. It is a plan. When reality changes, you revise it. The value is that it forces you to decide what your time is for. Without a schedule, the day is governed by impulse and interruption. With a schedule, you see trade-offs. If you spend 2 hours on email, those 2 hours must come from somewhere. If you attend a meeting, something else moves. The schedule makes the cost visible. This is especially important for deep work because depth needs space. It cannot survive on leftover scraps. If deep work gets only the tired, broken pieces of the day, it will produce tired, broken results. Newport wants us to place deep work deliberately, usually when our energy is strongest, and then defend it. He also suggests quantifying the depth of activities. Ask how long it would take to train a smart recent graduate to do a task. If the answer is not long, the task is probably shallow. This is not an insult. Many shallow tasks still matter. But the question helps you distinguish between work that uses your unique ability and work that merely uses your availability. This distinction can be uncomfortable because it reveals how much of the day may be spent on tasks that do not require your best mind. The goal is not arrogance. The goal is stewardship. If your mind can create rare value, then spending all day on easily replicated tasks is wasteful. It is like using a chef's knife to open junk mail. Possible, yes. Wise, no. Newport also recommends asking your boss for a shallow work budget if you work in an organization. What percentage of your time should be spent on shallow tasks? The conversation may feel strange, but it forces clarity. If your manager says deep work matters but fills 80% of your time with shallow obligations, the contradiction becomes visible. This can help renegotiate expectations. For independent workers, the same question applies personally. What is your shallow work budget? How much time will you allow for administration, messages, coordination, errands, and low-value maintenance? If you do not set a budget, the shallows will not politely restrain themselves. They're not known for manners. A major practical strategy is fixed schedule productivity. Decide when your workday ends, then work backward to make the important work fit. This reverses the usual pattern. Many people let work sprawl until exhaustion stops them. Newport argues for setting a firm endpoint, then becoming more selective and intense within that limit. This idea is easy to misunderstand. It is not laziness. It is pressure in service of priorities. If you know you must stop at 5:30, you become less tolerant of nonsense at 10:30. You make harder choices. You say no sooner. You shorten low-value commitments. You protect the work that matters because the day has edges. Newport also attacks email, which by this point in the book has earned it. Email is not evil, but it is a magnificent machine for turning other people's incomplete thinking into your problem. A vague email arrives. You answer. Another arrives. A thread grows. Soon 5 people are exchanging fragments, and somewhere in the distance, deep work quietly packs a bag and leaves. Newport suggests making people do more work when they send you messages. That does not mean being rude. It means requiring clarity. If someone asks for a meeting, ask for the purpose and agenda. If someone asks a vague question, push toward the next action. If an email does not make it easy to respond usefully, it may not deserve an immediate response. He also suggests writing process-centric emails. Instead of sending a quick reply that creates more back and forth, define the process clearly. Here are the options. Here's what I recommend. Here's what I need from you. Here is the next step. This takes slightly more effort up front, but reduces future loops. This is one of the book's most underrated ideas. Many people treat email as conversation, but email is often better used as coordination. The goal is not to keep the thread alive. The goal is to finish the thought, define the action, and close the loop. Email should move work forward, not become a digital campfire where everyone gathers to watch ambiguity burn. Newport's conclusion returns to the larger meaning of deep work. He tells the story of Bill Gates and the focused effort behind early Microsoft achievements. The broader point is that major accomplishments often require periods of intense concentration that look unreasonable from the outside. Breakthroughs are not usually produced by people who are available every minute. The book closes with a challenge. A deep life is not for everyone. Newport admits that depth requires sacrifice. It means missing out on some easy pleasures, some online noise, some shallow obligations, and some social approval that comes from instant responsiveness. But for people whose ambitions require serious thought, those sacrifices may be necessary. This honesty is important. Deep work is not selling a painless upgrade. It is saying that if you want the rewards of depth, you must accept the costs of depth. You cannot keep every distraction, every tool, every meeting, every feed, every expectation, and still expect your mind to produce at its highest level. Something has to give. For viewers, the final rule becomes a practical audit. Look at your week. What shallow work is necessary? What shallow work is optional? What shallow work exists only because nobody has questioned it? What can be batched? What can be shortened? What can be ignored? What can be clarified so it stops returning like a badly written sequel? Then look at your deep work. Where does it live? Is it scheduled? Is it protected? Is it connected to a wildly important goal? Is there a scoreboard? Is there a shutdown ritual? Are your tools helping it or quietly eating it? The book's full system can be summarized as a sequence. First, understand that deep work is valuable, rare, and meaningful. Second, design rituals and schedules that make deep work happen. Third, train the mind to tolerate boredom. Fourth, choose digital tools by their real contribution, not by their tiny possible benefit. Fifth, reduce shallow work so it no longer consumes the best parts of the day. That sounds simple. It is not easy. The hard part is that the shallow world offers immediate rewards. Deep work asks for faith before payoff. It asks you to sit with difficulty, protect time, disappoint some expectations, and trust that concentrated effort compounds. But the reward is serious. Deep work can make you better at your craft. It can make your output more valuable. It can make your days feel less scattered. It can restore the feeling that your mind belongs to you. In a culture where attention is constantly harvested, that is not a small thing. There's also a quiet dignity in choosing depth. It says your life is not only a reaction stream. It says your mind deserves more than fragments. It says the important work will not be left until every shallow demand has been satisfied, because shallow demands are bottomless and not especially grateful. Newport's book is ultimately about taking responsibility for attention, not in a dramatic way, in a daily way. The block on the calendar, the phone in another room, the closed inbox, the planned shutdown, the honest no, the clearer email, the walk with one hard problem, the refusal to turn boredom into a crisis. The final rule also asks us to become more honest about opportunity cost. Every yes to shallow work is a no to something else. It may be a no to an important project, a better strategy, a useful skill, a calmer evening, or a more thoughtful life. Because shallow work often arrives in small pieces, the cost is easy to miss. But small pieces accumulate. A day can be lost one harmless interruption at a time. One practical move is to create default rules. For example, check email at set windows rather than continuously. Keep mornings meeting-free where possible. Batch administrative tasks. Require agendas for meetings. Use templates for common responses. Turn vague requests into clear next actions. Decide in advance which tasks deserve same-day response and which can wait. These rules are not about becoming difficult. They are about becoming reliable in a deeper way. A person who protects focus can often deliver better work, clearer decisions, and more thoughtful communication. That is more valuable than being instantly available for everything. Instant availability is impressive only until you need someone to actually think. Another practical move is to review commitments weekly. Which meetings created value? Which recurring tasks still deserve to exist? Which reports are read? Which updates change decisions? Which obligations are maintained only because they have always been maintained? Shallow work often survives because nobody wants to have the awkward conversation. Deep work sometimes begins with that conversation. Newport's email advice can be applied immediately. When writing, reduce future ambiguity. Instead of thoughts, write what kind of response you need. Instead of let's discuss, suggest options or a next step. Instead of replying instantly to every unclear message, ask for the missing information. The goal is not to sound cold. The goal is to prevent communication from multiplying because nobody shaped it. The same principle applies to meetings. A useful meeting has a purpose, the right people, and an outcome. A shallow meeting has a title, a recurring slot, and the emotional energy of wet cardboard. If a meeting does not decide, clarify, create, or unblock, it may be a ceremony for avoiding written thought. Time blocking can expose this. When you plan the day, shallow work must compete for space. You may still choose it, but you choose knowingly. That is the power of the schedule. It turns time from a vague river into a set of containers. Once the containers are visible, waste becomes harder to ignore. The point is not to become obsessed with every minute. The point is to stop pretending time is infinite. If your day has 10 hours of possible work and 12 hours of demands, something must be cut, delayed, delegated, or done less perfectly. Without a plan, that decision is made by urgency. With a plan, you can make it by value. Newport's final rule also helps people who feel trapped in reactive jobs. Not everyone can redesign a role overnight. Some work genuinely requires responsiveness. But even then, there are usually small boundaries available. You might create a protected planning block, batch similar requests, set clearer response expectations, or negotiate one deeper window per week. The first win does not have to be dramatic. It has to be real. For managers, the lesson is sharper. If you say your team needs innovation, analysis, strategy, quality, or creativity, but you fill the week with shallow coordination, you are taxing the exact capacity you claim to need. A team cannot think deeply if every empty space is treated as available meeting land. Protecting focus is not a perk. For cognitive work, it is infrastructure. For individuals, the emotional challenge is guilt. Many people feel guilty when they are not instantly responsive. Newport's answer is to replace guilt with clarity. If a response is truly urgent, build a system for it. If it is not urgent, stop letting it cosplay as urgent. The world will continue if some emails wait. Some may even improve after everyone has had time to think, a radical technology known as patience. There is a final humility in this rule. Draining the shallows does not make anyone pure. Shallow work will remain part of life. Bills, coordination, forms, messages, logistics, maintenance, they're not going away. The goal is not contempt for ordinary tasks. The goal is proportion. Shallow work should serve the important work, not quietly become the center of the entire professional universe. For someone beginning now, the best first step is not to redesign your entire life overnight. That usually leads to a beautiful plan and a familiar collapse by Thursday. Start with one deep work block, 90 minutes, one important task, no phone, no inbox, no feed. Define success before you begin. When you finish, record what happened. Repeat. Then add one shallow work boundary. Maybe email only at set times. Maybe no meetings before noon twice a week. Maybe a daily shutdown ritual. Maybe a social media break. The point is to build evidence that depth is possible in your actual life. Not only in the life you would have if nobody needed anything and you lived inside a productivity blog. Deep work does not promise that focus will solve every problem. It will not make all jobs meaningful, all managers wise, or all inboxes merciful. But it gives a powerful standard. Use your best attention for your most important work and build a life that makes this possible often enough to matter. That is the final message of the book. Depth is a choice, but it is also a design problem. If you want more depth, do not merely wish for it. Build the rituals, boundaries, schedules, and tool rules that protect it. Thank you for watching this full summary of Deep Work by Cal Newport. If there is one idea to carry forward, it is this. Your attention is your life in practical form. Spend it casually, and the day disappears into noise. Spend it deliberately, and your work, skill, and sense of meaning can become much deeper. The shallow world will still be there tomorrow, cheerful and needy. Let wait sometimes. The important work has been waiting too.